Hello and welcome back. As we come towards the conclusion of our course, I hope you're enjoying your live recipes app on Heroku. So now you have a fairly feature-rich application. You have an authentication system with admin functionality. You have the ability to create and edit recipes. You can upload images for recipes and store them in your Amazon Web Services account. You can use Gravatars for profile images. You have numerous validations, ability to add ingredients and styles to recipes. You can search and display via multiple associations. You've also learned about and built a few one-to-many and many-to-many associations, migrations, models, views, controllers, etc. So that's a fairly large amount of material that you've covered. So now it's time to put to practice what you've learned. And I have a feature in mind that I want you to add to this project all by yourself. You can treat this as your final project. Now, I'm sure you have some ideas yourself about what you want to build, so this is completely optional, but this is something that I think you will enjoy building, and it will also help you practice what you've learned, which is very important in your progression towards becoming a Rails developer, or any developer for that matter. Practice is everything, okay? So right now, you have the ability to display recipes, right? So you have a show recipes page. If I click on it, it takes me to the show recipes page. What you don't have is for logged in chefs or users visiting the recipe page to leave a review about the recipe, right? They can currently like or dislike the recipe based on the thumbs up or down, but they cannot write a review on it. So that is a feature I want you to build. You already have all the knowledge base to build this, and don't forget to go back and review videos on any lesson that you need to, as you need to, but I will not code this section for you. I will, however, give you some direction and some guidance and some steps that we've followed so far, right? So first thing you'll find helpful is to write out what you want to build. And if you remember, we had started our application by using Mockingbird to build wireframes, right? So that would be step one. Write it down on a piece of paper if you want, and then transfer that to Mockingbird to build some wireframes. And then you have to think about how you're going to implement it. So right off the bat, I can kind of think of a feature that we already implemented that uses similar models. Remember the like feature? This belongs to chefs, also belongs to reviews. To the recipes. So a review would belong to recipes and belong to chefs as well. So that's very similar in terms of the model layer to what the like feature was like, right? This thumbs up or thumbs down. So let's talk about the things you'll need, all right? You'll need to create a migration to create reviews table first, right? So let's pull it up. So things you'll need. Migration to create reviews table. Right? What do you want to call it? Let's say you want to have a body column in it, a body attribute, and you want it to be type text field, right? And you also want 2 foreign keys because you want to reference chef ID, because you want only authenticated chefs or users to be able to leave reviews. Okay, so you can track who left which review. And also reference recipe ID, so you can reference which recipe the review was for. Okay, you'll need to then build the review model. So remember Rails convention, caps R, so review model, and then singular. Even though it's a reviews table, it'll be a review model. Then you'll need to create tests for the spec for the model. So you can add validations to the review model. Now, if you remember, we did this for the chefs and recipes model. So I would recommend revisiting those lectures if you need to figure out how to build the tests or how to kind of spec it out first. Then build the associations. So the has, many, and belongs to. So you'll have this between the recipes and reviews, and also the chefs and reviews, right? Okay. Then once you have the associations done, you'll want to test out the associations in Rails console. Okay. Then, things like recipe.reviews, then of course you'll have to grab a local recipe first, local instance of recipe, and then local variable recipe. You can grab that by saying recipe.first or give it any ID number for any recipe, and then .review should give you all the reviews associated with that recipe. Then chef.reviews similarly, right? Now, once the associations are set, you have to think about how you want users to enter in the reviews, right? So I would associate each recipe with reviews. So a prime place to start would be the recipe show page. So what am I talking about? Right here, which we kind of touched on earlier. You would want like a text area over here where logged in users can enter in their reviews. Okay. Next, you want to expose some routes for it, right? So resources, reviews. Remember the config routes file. So under config, if you go to routes.rb. So something like this, resources, then reviews, and then specify which ones you want. So I'm thinking of new and create. New, create, and show perhaps. Or you can, if you do kind of a nested format, you could probably do the show in the recipes page itself, but I'll leave that up to you, okay? So some other things you have to remember is when you create the recipes, well, let me actually write this one out first. Create routes. Then when you create the recipes, you want to ensure that only authenticated users, so authenticated chefs, can create recipes, can create reviews, right? So how do you do that? You can probably do a before action require user, which we've been using. So that could come in handy for you. This will, you'll definitely need to associate chef ID and recipe ID when you create the recipe or when you create and save the review. So you'll need to pass in either chef ID and recipe ID, or from the params hash, you can just pass in the chef and the recipe objects that have been passed in. And remember, you can grab the chef from the session, right? So you'll have this available because it'll be an authenticated chef. And the recipe ID, you can also pass in to the params hash based on, the recipe where the review is entered for. And then you ensure that you save those when you create a review. Then next thing you want to do is, so this will be a model back form. So you can use existing code, right? If possible. So one place you can grab the code for the text area from, if you look at a new recipe page, right here, this description is a text area. So you can use code like this to build this feature. And I'd also recommend taking help from the recipes index page as to ideas as to how you can display, right? Display the reviews associated with every recipe. Now, what do I mean by that? If you go to the index page, you see how we have pagination and we have a listing of all the recipes. Now, if I go into a recipe, I'd probably want pagination here and then a listing of all of the reviews one after the other, right? So that would be something very useful. And I think that's all the information I think you need to get started. Now, if you run into trouble, feel free to ask questions in the forum area and I'll help out as best as I can. And you will also be able to, I would encourage you to list out your code also, so other users can also, or other students can also help you, or, you know, look at your code as they build this themselves for ideas. Now, one important thing to try to remember is to create all of this using a Git branch feature, okay? So that you can just drop the branch and not merge it back to your master branch if you don't like what you've created or if you've really screwed it up, right? That's completely fine if you do. Keep trying and you'll get it right eventually. The other important thing is that, you know, this is just a suggestion, right? You can build whatever feature you want as long as you go ahead and build it. That's the important part. I'm giving this as an exercise because I want you to keep in practice and not forget what you've learned. And that's very important in programming, is to practice as soon as you learn. Okay? So that's something to keep in mind. So good luck coding, and I look forward to seeing the additions that you have thought up and added to your application, and I want to see it in action. All right, good luck.